Hello, everybody. This is Juice again. I want to talk to you about the pervasive communist and Marxist movement in our country and how it continues on. And it continues on in the most unlikely of places that normal people would not believe. This is an article on the American Bar Association's website about critical race theory. What else is there to say? It's really hard to believe that this is coming from, the Bar Association, where your attorneys have to be certified. Oh, all right. Well, anyway, we have a bit to go through here. So it says here, a lesson in critical race theory, and this is an article back in January 12 of 2021. So this article is a few months old, but nevertheless, it is still very interesting to see it, on the American Bar Association website. It says, in September 2020, President Trump issued an executive order excluding from federal contracts any diversity and inclusion training interpreted as containing divisive concepts, race or sex stereotyping, and race or sex scapegoating. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think if you want to get rid of racism, stop teaching that people are different based on race. Well, that's pretty common sense to me. Among the content considered divisive is critical race theory, and I completely agree with that. Critical race theory is inherently divisive. It's divisive by design. It's a subversion technique used by communists and Marxists. It says, in response, the African American Policy Forum, led by the legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, launched the Truth Be Told campaign to expose the harm that the order poses. That's the thing. I think that critical race theory poses more harm than the order does. The order was essentially saying, hey, you can't gather a group of people in a room, and verbally hit them with sticks for 2 hours and tell them how they feel about another group of people based on their skin color. That, to me, that's the definition of racism. I'm going to skip down all this other stuff. It says critical race theory is under attack and all this other stuff. It says critical race theory is not a diversity and inclusion training, but a practice of integrating race and racism in society that emerged in the legal academy and spread to other fields of scholarship. Well, that's a true statement. It does integrate racism in our society. It brings about racism. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be sitting in a class being told what a bad person I am for things that I didn't do. And the only reason why I'm a bad person is because I was born with a certain color of skin, or the only reason why I deserve something is because of the color of my skin. Either way, either what you're doing to me is you're disparaging me because you're saying I don't have what I deserve because I didn't earn it because of my color of my skin, or you're telling me the same thing. If I were a black man and you were telling me that I couldn't earn it on my own even if I tried because of the color of my skin, which we know is not true. That's just simply not true. Let's see. It cannot be confined to a static and narrow definition because nothing that communists and Marxists have can be defined as a static and narrow definition. The words that they use have to have a wide array to have the best effect, because that way they can continue to change what the words freaking mean. And, that's the name of the game. You keep changing the words, you keep changing the definitions of words. And we saw that, what was it, a few months back, where this woman finally had the definition of racism changed. So, and the people at the dictionary went along with it. I don't think people quite understand just how bad it is as far as this pervasive communist ideology goes. I mean, it is. We have people that are active communists that are in our country. I think there was a report back about 6 months ago that I heard there was 42,000 Chinese Communist Party practitioners here in the United States in high positions of power in media and other organizations. So 42,000. There's 50 states. Now, assuming that you divided those up by the states, I mean, you're talking about 1,000 people, roughly close to 1,000 people, maybe 800 to 1,000 people per state that certified working with the Communist Party, getting paid, baby. And that's quite a lot of people when you factor in that they've infiltrated media. That's 1,000 people that could potentially be media journalists, CEOs of companies, on leadership boards, in any kind of capacity, working for companies as a diversity trainer. The list goes on and on and on. And because you can't attack woke ideology without being canceled, well, there's that, nobody's going to speak up about it, and they're going to continue to include it. But this is exactly how they wind up taking over. We have big problems if the American Bar Association is writing nonsense like this. It's we have some serious problems here in America. I would not consider working with an attorney who had this sort of ideology. There is critical race theory. It's all about Trump. Here's another school. Since the ban has been lifted, schools have been embracing more critical race theory. Oxford and all these other colleges and stuff like that. This is supposed to be one of the new schools here. I'm not sure. cityjournal.org. Greater Philadelphia. The Society of Friends has educated children in America since 1689, when William Penn urged his new city, Philadelphia, to open up the Penn Charter. Over the centuries, Quaker schools have become some of the East Coast's most prestigious educational institutions. That legacy of excellence, though, now is in jeopardy as Quaker schools embrace critical race theory. Well, maybe I need to educate myself more on Quaker schools and what those really are. But, my understanding is when we first came over here, we had the Quakers, the bakers, and the candlestick makers that landed on Plymouth. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. We're in trouble. And any school that does this, you don't send your kid to. Period. We have to fight back on this. We have to. We have to stop giving our money away to it. We've reached a point in society where we have to vote with our wallet. And that's the only way these people are going to start getting a hint. And when they hire these people, when they hire these communists that start working for them, we need to say to ourselves, okay, I see where this is going. We need to recognize what communism is right when we see it before it really becomes a problem. And when it really becomes a problem is when, you start getting knocks on your door and, you see your neighbors being dragged out into the yard and put on their knees, and next thing you know, they're gone. Everything's cleaned up the next day. And that's happened in the past, by the way. People getting put on lists and stuff like that. And you can think that's a conspiracy theory all you want, but that has happened in the past. There was a list, the Bolsheviks, I think, created a list of people, and they held on to that list for 10 years until their moment of revolution arrived, and they killed something along the lines of 14,000 people overnight. And it was such a crazy thing because it was literally overnight. that at that time the U.S. couldn't even understand how it happened, and then they found out that they were compiling a list for over a decade of people that basically were the thought deplorables, and they went out one night when they got into power, and they pulled those people out of their houses and killed them and got rid of them. And because they weren't part of the school of woke, they weren't part of that movement. This is the direction that we're headed if we're not careful. And the only way to combat it is to stop sending your kids to these universities. Stop supporting anything that supports. So that's the problem. You might not support Black Lives Matter, but Facebook will, or even like YouTube will, or whatever. And we have to stop. We have to tone down the support, the money that they get from us. We have to tone it down. And if you have kids that are, especially children, younger children that, when I consider, 21-year-olds and stuff like that, I consider them still kind of children. They're still new. They think they know everything, but they don't. We did when we were their age, but we didn't. They'll spend your money, giving your money to these causes. And I think it's important that we educate our children and have them recognize what communism is and how communism, how communism works and what they do to get followings and trigger movements. It's clear that this is going on in our country, and it's clear that we have a huge problem with it. And if we don't get our stuff together and we don't get our heads wrapped around it, and we keep, wanting to watch Netflix because, The Witcher's on Netflix. I love The Witcher. But you know what? I wasn't going to tolerate cuties. Netflix went. Facebook went. Facebook went a while ago because I couldn't deal with Facebook anymore. They were canceling people. They were, they made it where you couldn't say anything. They were stifling speech and stuff like that. YouTube has done some things, but they haven't been quite as bad as Facebook and Twitter. I canceled Twitter for the same reasons. But we have to start toning it down. And I'm going to take this channel, Juice. I'm going to take Juice and I'm going to move Juice over to probably Rumble or something like that. Unfortunately, Rumble's not quite there because they don't have really a Roku platform. They've got a Roku platform, and that's kind of to me, that's a big share of the YouTube market is the Roku. And there's the ease of use in the platform on Roku and on the computer and stuff like that. That's a big deal. But we need to start looking at how to get away from these other industries that we've given too much power to, because now they're using their own power against us. They're silencing our voices, and they're making it where if you can't talk about it, and pretty soon they're going to try to make it where you can't even think about it. And we don't need to go that far. All this needs to stop. Anyway, that's all I got.